everybody. Welcome to Monday Morning Must Knows. My name is Merlin Rothfeld, and we've got a lot to talk about for the upcoming trading week. Although, to get started, we saw some very interesting things happen last week. S&P, NASDAQ, Russell, Dow, all down, showing fairly ugly weeks. But the real kind of surprise for me of last week was the 10-year yield. We saw a 5.5% increase in that 10-year yield. Of course, a lot of that coming off the heels of not so good inflation data, which we've been saying here for quite some time. When you look at energy prices, they're surging. Looks like inflation is going to be back on the main plate here for the Fed, which may mean rates not getting lowered anytime soon. So let's start things off with our Monday Morning Must Knows. We've got so much to talk about, and I'm just rambling. Let's get it started with our earnings calendars. You guys know I always like to start with the earnings calendar. This week is exceptionally quiet. Not a lot of big names, but there are 683 companies to report. Nothing on Monday, but on Tuesday, you've got Volkswagen and Tencent Media and Music. On Wednesday, you've got Micron Technologies and General Mills. Let's see if those commodity prices impact their bottom line. And on Thursday, the biggest day of the week for earnings, you can see we've got Accenture, Nike, FedEx, Lululemon, and Darden Restaurants. And that, my friends, is actually all of it for your earnings calendar. There are a plethora of international firms reporting, but I generally don't talk about those too much because their reporting times are very different. Sometimes they're the wee hours of the morning. So I'm going with most of the U.S. companies here that are listed, although Tencent is, of course, Chinese company just listed in the U.S. All right, let's shift focus. Now, we always like to focus on the central banks around the world because of their power and clout towards not only their currency, but the overall economy for those respective countries. Normally, we get maybe one or two. All of a sudden this week, we have probably the heaviest I have ever seen it in 1 week with regards to central bank announcements. So that's what we're going to shift our focus to right now. We'll start things off with the Bank of Japan. Now, they have been stuck at negative 0.1 for a ridiculously long period of time. And of course, a lot of people, like myself, have been wondering, how on earth can you keep your rates this low and not have significant inflation? Of course, you've seen the yen's value fall and fall and fall, and the dollar just gets stronger and stronger. At some point, you will see some intervention here. May it happen at the next meeting? I don't know. But here's the tentative announcement is going to happen on Monday. Of course, they are not certain about their times. It's expected they're going to stay at negative 0.1, but the big question is, what are they going to say about the falling value of the Japanese yen? All right, our next one here is a quick one. The Reserve Bank of Australia also coming out with their rate announcement. They are expected to stay at 4.35%. That will happen Monday at 11:30 p.m. Eastern time, so late night for those of you in the United States. Of course, currencies are great because they trade all around the world. But we're not done. Next, we move over to the United States, which has a very highly anticipated rate announcement coming out. That's going to be Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And at that rate announcement, right now the expectations are we're going to stay right where we are at 5.5%. Now, of course, this makes sense because we've seen the most recent CPI and PPI numbers that came out last week were more elevated. Commodity prices have been surging, and this does paint the picture of inflation being back higher going forward. Now, does Jerome Powell make some comments at the press conference? That's what I'm excited and waiting to see. That will be the big news there, will be what happens at that press conference. You know, it's about an hour to 2 hours, depending on how long they let it go. But a lot of these journalists will be grilling him about this rising inflation issue and commodity prices. Remember, rents and energy make up the highest weighting in inflation, and those have been surging. And as we just mentioned, the 10-year had a 5% yield or 5% increase last week alone. Those rising yields make the cost to buy a property more expensive, and therefore landlords will pass that cost on to their renters. So it doesn't look that good from an inflation front, and we'll see what the U.S. has to say about it. But wait, we're not done. You thought that maybe just 3 central banks would be enough? Oh, no. I have got 2 more to speak of. I'm telling you, it is a busy week with regards to central banks. Let's jump over to Switzerland. The Swiss National Bank is expected to come out Thursday at 4:30 a.m. Eastern time with their rate announcement, which is going to stay at 1.75%. So no real shock there. And then finally, we have the Bank of England, which is also coming out on Thursday. That will be at 8 a.m. Eastern time. And they are, of course, expected to stay right where they're at as well at 5.25%. So the good news for everyone here is that rates are going to stay right where they're at for all 5 of these central banks. So no real changes expected there. However, any deviation or hints from the central bankers about where rates may be going in the future could add tremendous volatility to some of these currency pairs. And of course, for those of you who are Forex traders, this means a ton of potential opportunity and also increased risk this week. So be careful, my friends. Now let's shift into our final piece for the week, which is going to be services and manufacturing numbers. That all starts on Thursday. Now on Thursday, it's a plethora of announcements for services and manufacturing. We start things off with France at 4:15 a.m. Next, you've got Germany at 4:30. On the heels of that at 5 a.m., you have the EU, followed up by England at 5:30, and then we bring it home to the United States at 9:45 Eastern time in the morning. That's when we get our numbers for services manufacturing, and that's just a good kind of measurement to how our economy is doing. Are we seeing expansion? Are we seeing contraction within those specific market segments? So it's not just about the US this week. As you can see, we've got a tremendous amount of international data. Lots of stuff from around the world, which may impact your trading and your financial decisions. So be careful out there, friends. That is your Monday Morning Must-Knows. We will see you next week.